No problem there. And obviously, as you can see, this is getting recorded as well. So if you are watching this in the future, hello to all of you guys as well. Christmas may well be over by now, in which case get planning for next year. Maybe we'll find this recording will be useful for years to come, or if nothing else, we can look back and have a good laugh about it. So I've never actually done a Zoom talk on this before. So as I say, you might have your own ideas, you might even have better ideas and alternatives than me. If you haven't seen me do a Zoom talk before, my name is Becky. I run a local Bedfordshire-based animal encounters or mobile zoo company called Teaching Talons. We try to be as green and sustainable as we can anyway. You can follow us on social media, but I do also have a separate Instagram account just for my eco-friendly swaps and tips, which you can see in my name there. It's just at @the_eco_emo. So if anyone wants to follow Teaching Talons or the Eco Emo on Instagram, you can. I'll be honest, I don't update the Eco Emo Instagram as much anymore because a lot of my swaps are already changed and in place, but it might be worth that initial follow and a look through for other tips and hints and products and brands that you can use in day-to-day life. But today, Christmas is coming, as you can see from my jumper. So we are going to be talking all things festive today. Not one I've done before, but we're going to see what we come up with really. And as I say, if you've got ideas of your own, post them in the chat. So there's so much to talk about. Christmas can be such a time of sort of excess, indulgence, buying more than you need. It can get a little bit materialistic and people can easily get caught up and forget about sort of the true meaning of Christmas. And it can, of course, become, therefore, very wasteful. Not just in relation to things like that gift that somebody doesn't actually want or need, but also in relation to things like all the wrapping paper. I read a really scary statistic that I should have refreshed myself on how many times you could wrap the globe in Christmas paper from each year. So it can be wasteful in that respect. And even things like food, just getting too much in, not using it all up. So we're going to be covering sort of all aspects today. And if you think of your own bits, just pop them in the chat and we can revisit them as we go. So I'm going to start off actually talking about wrapping paper because I feel like it is a big part. I think pretty much everybody watching this now or in the future on recording is going to be buying somebody presents at some point. And it's really tempting to buy all these beautiful, gorgeous wrapping papers that are covered in things like gorgeous glitters. But most of the time, those glitters are really bad for the planet. They're not biodegradable. And of course, these tiny particles of glitters will eventually make their way into the oceans where they can cause huge problems. So it's best to avoid glittery papers unless you know it is made with a biodegradable eco-friendly glitter, and they are out there. And of course, most rolls of wrapping paper do come in that little cellophane plasticky tube, and I'm not actually sure if that is generally household recyclable or not, but there are lots of alternatives. So first thing I would say that everyone should invest in, not just for Christmas, but for wrapping presents in general, is a roll of craft paper. Craft paper is actually surprisingly cheap. You can buy huge rolls of it. Obviously, do try and make sure you're buying it from an eco-friendly company that's going to send your brown craft paper out in also recyclable or biodegradable plastic-free packaging. And also try and make sure, obviously, it's not being shipped from abroad. Now, you might think it looks a bit boring, but actually you can wrap presents really, really nicely in brown craft paper. You can add things like natural twines and things, which you can get dyed in a variety of natural colours with natural dyes. And you can decorate the paper itself. So lots of different ideas. If I'd had more time to prep for this, and if I was truly in festive mode and wrapping presents, I would have done things like perhaps shown you some potato stamps. You can dye these with some nice vegetable-based inks, or you can even buy ink pads that are eco-friendly. And kids, especially anyone watching with kids, you can make that quite a fun activity. Get the children to decorate their own wrapping paper for the gifts for people. And that adds a really nice touch as well. I think people do like to get a little bit creative and a little bit crafty with Christmas. So why not bring your nice wrapping paper into that as well? Going back to biodegradable glitters, again, you can buy that. You can get an eco-friendly glue. So if you still want a glittery paper, you can do that. But just bear in mind, if it's no longer plain paper, you can't just pop it straight in recycling, although at least it will still eventually rot away. But lots of things you can do with vegetable or natural-based inks, stampers, make your own stampers if you want to get involved with the children, and glitter too. I have got some twine here. You can obviously get your more boring plain brown twine, but I still think that creates a nice natural rustic present. And you could even add little garnishes as such to your wrapping, with things like little sprigs of spruce that you've collected naturally, that you can then decorate underneath your beautiful tied ribbons. Or you can get twine that's been dyed a little bit more funkier, like this. This is wool twine, but it's just got a little bit more colour if you like a bit more pizzazz in your presents. On top of that, you can maybe decorate them with some origami. So Tara, who's actually joined in the audience today, gave me this fabulous idea literally at the final hour when I was putting together my list. But you can make some little origami to stick on. This one's quite a big one. Obviously, you can make these in a variety of sizes. I can't take credit for this. My sister made it, but she literally made this in about 2 minutes. And I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but it is a little 3D origami lily. It's also quite an easy one to do, and there's quite a simple origami star you can make as well. Now this one is literally made with recyclable newspaper, so this could go straight in your recycling once it's been taken off the gift. And as I said, you can make them bigger or smaller, and these are a great alternative to those definitely not eco-friendly sort of ribbon-based single-use bows that'll just get chucked in the bin. You could of course use different coloured card or paper as well. Just try and make sure that it is something more biodegradable and recyclable. And you can also add gift tags to your presents. So we've done wrapping paper, we've done accessories, but what about the labels themselves? Again, there are options out there to just literally buy more eco-friendly tags in plastic-free packaging. But last year I actually made my own out of little wooden discs. So again, you might have to shop around to make sure they don't come in any plastic packaging, or you might have to just accept there is going to be some plastic here and there, but just that smaller amount than you would generally create. And I decorated these with Posca pens, Posca paint pens. Again, there might be more eco alternatives out there, and I think you can TerraCycle the pens once they're empty and run out anyway. So I put Merry Christmas on one side, and this was for my dad's present last year. I've also got my mum's here, but as you can see, they can either keep them and they make a lovely little hanging tree decoration. So again, it's got another purpose. It can be reused again. Or what I did, because I am cheeky, is I quite simply collected these back from everybody after Christmas to use again this year. So it's a really nice touch to make your own gift tags. And again, it goes back to that sort of nice homely Christmas craft activity, just a really nice thing for people to keep or to use again year after year. I didn't say at the beginning, but what I will hasten to add is I'm not perfect. I am 100% not zero waste. I'm not living a 100% plastic-free life. I'm not even a vegetarian or a vegan. I think it's more about doing what we can. So if there's a few small changes you can make them. Don't panic too much. As long as you're making changes where you can and reducing, reusing and recycling where you can, that's really what it's all about. So don't panic. Even one little idea from our wrapping station we've just discussed is great. Now, again, for this year, it's probably a little bit late to talk about advent calendars. If you are the kind of people that do have an advent calendar and open it every day, hopefully you're 2 days in by now, like I am. But there are actually plastic-free or at least more eco-friendly alternatives out there. Have a shop around. I've seen nice ones from websites like Chococo this year. So they're a chocolate company based in Dorset that make completely plastic-free packaging for all of their chocolates, and they are very delicious. I've also seen that Tony's chocolate, which some of you might have heard of, their advent calendar is actually available in Waitrose this year. And again, I believe that it is fair trade and plastic-free. Another really nice option, again, if you want to get crafty and more involved, is to make your own advent calendar, or to at least buy one that you can refill every year. You'll actually save yourself a lot of money that way, which is rare when it comes to eco-friendly things. Sometimes you end up spending more, or at least the initial outlay is more. But making your own or refilling your own advent is definitely somewhere you can save money. I've actually seen friends of mine make advent calendars out of toilet roll tubes, literally just popping them together with string or eco-friendly glue, filling the middle and wrapping them in tissue paper, and then making them into a Christmas tree shape. So you want to get really creative, that's an idea I stole from my friend Dawn. Or you can just buy one you can refill. So this was a definitely not very eco-friendly or plastic-free advent calendar that my mother-in-law had a few years ago, and it was so beautiful. This is something people would normally chuck in the bin, but literally I kept it and then refilled all the little boxes for her last year. So again, this is something that wasn't plastic free to begin with and would have just gone in recycling or worse to landfill. But because I made the effort to keep it, make sure it doesn't get damaged and refill it every year, that's something really thoughtful. It will save you money as well, and it saves something like this going to waste. And there's a few refillable advent calendars around that you can get. So for my husband this year, I bought him a beer advent calendar from the beer company, which is spelled B-I-E-R. And actually I was really pleasantly surprised because it did come in plastic-free packaging. The actual advent calendar itself is completely plastic-free. It's made out of cardboard and the doors are designed to just lift open and shut again. So I bought that one on purpose because I was thinking, okay, that's easy for this year, but I will keep the packaging and remake him his own beer advent calendar far cheaper next year. So lots of little ideas, they won't all be perfect. Also, just constantly look around. When you're in the shops, there are now more plastic free and eco-friendly options out there. So even when you're just looking for something in general, you might stumble across something. So I managed to pick up these lovely little festive dog Christmas napkins. They're in just a cardboard box and none of that usual plastic wrapper that they come in, and these are completely eco-friendly and biodegradable, and I just happened to spot these in TK Maxx. I usually use cheeky panda napkins, which are just plain white, but I thought, do you know what, I'll pick up this box. They're going to look nicer on the Christmas table, but there's no single use or pointless plastic. And during that same little wander around TK Maxx, I was thinking about making my own Christmas crackers this year, but thankfully, to save myself the effort, I came across these ones. Plastic-free crackers and advent calendars are becoming much bigger. I really noticed that Christmas crackers, particularly last Christmas in the shops, there were a lot more plastic-free options, or even if they weren't plastic-free, a lot of companies are now ditching the plastic window in the front. So this particular one just doesn't have a plastic window at all. And then it's just filled with wooden sticks and cardboard photo props. So I thought, you know what, that's something everyone can do. It's not a tacky gift that someone's going to look at for 2 seconds or not even want or pop straight in the bin. It's something you can have a laugh with. You can get some nice photos and it will all biodegrade or can be recycled in the end. If you don't fancy buying them ready to go, or you don't come across the plastic-free one, and you want to make your own, there are options for that too. The obvious thing to use, again, if we're going to keep it old school, is of course the humble toilet roll. I mean, let's be honest, they are the craft tool of a lifetime, aren't they? We use them in school for crafts, and even as adults, we can still make use of toilet rolls. These are so easy to make crackers out of. And if any of you watching already buy eco-friendly toilet rolls, there are certain brands that actually come in the little wrappers, and a great way to repurpose these wrappers is as wrapping paper, although you might find it's a bit thin and you need to use it over craft paper or use a couple of layers, but you can literally just wrap the toilet roll back up and create a cracker. The Christmas cracker I'm about to show you is nothing marvelous, but bear in mind, I literally made this in about 10 seconds. Christmas cracker, there you go. So all I did was took the toilet roll wrapping and wrapped it around. Now, obviously you would put a gift inside it. So you could write out or print your own little jokes to go inside them. You could make an eco-friendly paper hat to go inside them. You can even buy the little cracker snaps that make the bang online. Now, you won't be able to necessarily buy them in plastic-free packaging, but if you're going to just buy one big multi-pack of cracker snaps in that one wrapper, that is obviously better than all your crackers coming in lots and lots and lots of plastic wrappings year after year. Just go and buy yourself a nice big bulk pack. So you can even have the snap in your homemade cracker if you want to. And then you can actually put something inside that people are going to want. So instead of these rubbish plastic paper clips and things that sometimes you don't even know what they are, put something nice in. So again, you could go and buy a nice box of plastic-free wrapped chocolates, and you could put a chocolate in each one. Everybody loves a little chocolate at Christmas. You could buy perhaps a little eco-friendly bath bomb. Places like Beauty Kitchen do big bags of mini bath bombs, and you could easily pop one of these inside each one. And I'm sure you guys are probably thinking of some ideas of what you could actually fill an eco-friendly plastic-free cracker with. So if you can think of any ideas other than chocolates and bath bombs, even little bars of soap, do pop any ideas in the chat. And they're going to look really nice on your table too. And going back to when we were talking about wrapping earlier, you can pop some of that nice eco-friendly twine, either natural or with natural dyes on the ends to decorate it a little bit more. You could do some vegetable stamps on them. You could pop one of those little, maybe make a little tiny origami star or lily. And you can actually really make these into quite a talking point on your table that's also going to look really nice, and maybe encourage other people to make some swaps and changes too. Because when other people see you doing all these little ideas and these lovely little Christmas crafts, they want to make changes and get involved as well. One thing I missed on the wrapping, but luckily because I'm surrounded by eco-friendly things, I've been reminded, but paper-based tape with eco-friendly glue. Again, really easy to buy these rolls of paper tape. They stick perfectly fine. They look nice and natural on top of your craft paper wrapping, and just a really easy thing to invest in, just for taping things in general, not just for wrapping Christmas presents. As we think about the day itself, obviously we're going to come on to food. As I've already said, it can be a very wasteful time of year. So do think about how much stuff do you actually need? And where are you going to get it from? So think about shopping local. It's always good to support local businesses. There's some gorgeous local fruit and veg shops around us in Bedfordshire, and a lot of them will actually put together a specific Christmas box, and many of them will even deliver it to your house, or you can order specific items that you need. So have a look into your local area. What local fruit and veg places have you got, and what can you buy actually loose without the plastic-free packaging? For those of us watching this that aren't vegetarian or vegan, you're obviously going to be thinking about things like meats and your turkey. So again, you want to look into more sustainable local farming. You don't want to buy food that's traveled loads and loads of miles, has probably had a horrible life. Try and go free range, try and go local. And if you can get it plastic free, even better. So for me personally this year, I've done the same as last year. So we have ordered our big Christmas fruit and veg box from Seasons Fruit and Veg, who are local to us. That will all come plastic free. It's got everything in it that you need for your Christmas dinner and the whole period really, even things like your satsumas, your little Christmas clementines. Even I think it's got some nuts and things, all those kind of bits and bobs that you want. And it's all getting delivered to your house, all the hassle's taken out of it. It's ordered, it's done. And we've got our meat box coming from them as well. So Seasons Fruit and Veg work with Clayton's Butchers. And again, they will package all the meat for them in plastic-free packaging and things like butcher's paper. Sometimes, again, it's just about taking it more old school. And that's a far more sustainable way to do it. Than others. So that's worth thinking about. It can be a bit more expensive, but to be honest, I think the veg and butcher's box from Seasons does work out fairly all right on price. So when you're buying your gifts as well, you're going to want to shop more local with that too. So have a look into supporting small businesses as well as local businesses. Websites like Etsy are great to find little local sellers or just small businesses in general that will really appreciate your custom, and of course make some beautiful things as well. Try and avoid big websites like Amazon. Try and shop small and local, and that will all help. Now, some of you might be going out for Christmas dinner, or you might be going to visit friends and family. Now, some you'll be visiting further away, well, depending on what the COVID situation and the government rules are this year. But if you are going somewhere to a friend or for a meal, and it's local enough, just walk home. That's a really great way to be more environmentally friendly. If it's not so far that you actually need to drive, then walk. It's always really easy to say, oh, go on, I'll drive, especially if there's a designated driver, or it's easy to say, let's get a taxi back, I can't be bothered to walk. But you know what, get your hat and scarf on, wrap up nice and warm, and walk home, and you'll burn off some calories from your big Christmas dinner and all those drinks as well. So if you can walk home, walk home. If you can't walk home and it's further afield, do look into things like lift shares, having just one driver. Do you need 2 or 3 cars to go, or can just one car pick up a few of you? Could you share a taxi? It's just starting to think a little bit more about what do we actually need, and where can we perhaps be a little bit more environmentally friendly. I'm trying to think what else. Do you know what? I feel like I've actually blasted through all the key things I thought of. Last crafty bits really are of course making things yourself again, things like Christmas wreaths. This is a willow wreath that I made last year when I worked at Centre Park, so I wasn't involved in buying all the stock for that, and obviously a lot of this ribbon could be bought in a more eco-friendly way or in plastic-free packaging. But if you want to make your own, you could do a little woven willow wreath. This one's got foraged pine cones on it, and the little top frosted pine cone is reused from a single use table centerpiece that I bought one year that otherwise would have gone in the bin. But instead I took the whole thing apart and I kept all the beautifully decorated things like snowflakes and pine cones off it to use again. So sometimes maybe where plastic is unavoidable, or maybe even something's been gifted to you, if there's some part of it you can reuse or repurpose, then you know, that is all going to make a difference. I make my own table centerpiece every year, and I try and make a wreath for the front door as well. It's just a nice, fun activity to do over the Christmas period. And I'm sure a lot of you watching are quite crafty as well. So make your own. Go out foraging. Always make sure you've obviously got permission from the homeowner or the landowner. Don't just start snipping bits of holly out of people's front gardens without asking. But you know, if you see someone with a beautiful holly bush in their front garden and you want to give a little knock on the front door and say, excuse me, do you mind if I take a few snippets of this? I'm going to make my own wreath. Most people will be quite interested in that and quite obliging. You might even find it in things like hedgerows and out and about on walks. But you can honestly forage some beautiful bits of natural foliage. And as long as you're not taking any more than you need or hacking down a whole plant, which you'd have no reason to do anyway, then that's going to look absolutely gorgeous. Again, it's going to make your table look great or your front door. People are going to be talking and asking about it, and you might even inspire them to do the same. Now, one thing that I learned last year is you probably all heard of a product called Oasis, and it's often used in things like centerpieces if you're using foliage or any floristry work. But actually it's really, really terrible for the environment. It's actually awful, but you can actually buy moss alternatives. So have a little look online. You can buy moss wreaths as the base to making your naturally foraged wreaths. And I'm hoping, because I'm going to look into that for this year, that you can also buy moss pads if you're wanting to make more of a table centerpiece out of foraged bits of foliage. And things like spruce and holly work really, really well. Oasis works because it holds the water in and it will keep your sprigs around for longer, but terrible for the planet. So if you can switch to moss, that's worth thinking about as well when you're doing your sort of foraged bits and bobs for the table. You will all know these, but I have millions of ideas of what you can do with your Christmas leftovers. We don't really want any of it to end up in the bin or as food waste, although of course, worst case scenario, you can put it in your food waste bag for recycling, or better yet, in your own home composting. But of course, you can make things like a delicious turkey curry, things like bubble and squeak with all those leftover veggies. All the sprouts that everyone's rejected can be mashed up with your leftover roasties to make a lovely bubble and squeak. You can use things like the carcass, if you are a meat eater, of your turkey to make things like a lovely Christmas soup, or you can make it into stock. So many ideas. So just don't chuck it away. Try and think about, what do you need? And if you've got leftovers, how can you use as much of that as you possibly can? So I have a feeling I've covered most things. One website that I did get told about this afternoon, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but it might help some of you out, is the EcoCraft website. And a lot of the things and a lot of the ideas that I've talked about today, things like products for wrapping and crafting, you can buy from EcoCraft. And because it is called EcoCraft, you know the products you're getting when you look into it are eco-friendly. And of course, the packaging they're sending them out in is as well. That can catch a lot of people out. You've bought something like your brown craft paper, but you perhaps haven't thought about where it's actually getting shipped from or what it's getting shipped in. So finding websites like EcoCraft is a really good way to actually look into what you can get in the most eco-friendly way possible. So I feel like I've rabbited on quite quickly. I've come at you very quickly with lots and lots of ideas. But as I said, I haven't done this before, so it is a bit of trial and error. If you have thought of any of your own ideas during that, or perhaps any expansions on some of the hints and tips that I've said, do pop those in the chat. Or if you have any questions at all about any of the ideas that I've come up with today, any of those solutions, swaps and tips, pop them in the chat as well. And then we can stay on for a few more minutes to perhaps see what ideas and questions that you guys have. So I'll give you a few minutes to type those into the chat, but I do hope that that's helped some of you out. Don't panic, don't feel overwhelmed. It's going to be virtually impossible to have a completely eco-friendly, plastic-free, glitter-free Christmas. Sadly, at the moment, that's just not the world we live in. And you're bound to be given some sort of gift that you think, oh, I didn't need that, or I don't use this particular thing, but just find a way to use it. And if you end up with things like presents that perhaps you don't use because you already use an eco-friendly alternative, or it just doesn't fit with you, don't panic about it. Re-gift it if that's appropriate, or donate it to charity. Lots of charities are always looking for things like really, really nice raffle prizes so that they can raise lots of funds. A lot of the dog charities that I work with and support and animal rescues do things like raffles, and they're always looking for lovely gifts. So if worse comes to worse and you're given something that you think you really don't need, or you don't want, or you can't use it, then there's still ways to use it, and you can gift that on, or better yet, donate it to charities to use. Oh, I'm sorry you didn't have any sound at the beginning, but Nicola and Chris, you can definitely catch that on the recording later to see if you missed any bits and bobs. Toilet rolls, this is the thing, there's so many things you can do with toilet rolls. So Nicola and Chris are saying they've been saving them up for planting seeds in the spring. They're perfect because, of course, your little seedlings, it will then just rot away. But I mean, there's loads you can do with them. There's a reason we all did toilet roll crafts at school, and as adults we can find a purpose for them as well. And actually making the homemade crackers is really good. The other thing that I do with these little crackers, I've never actually made these for the table, I just buy plastic free ones. But I make them for my animals. So as you can imagine, running a mobile zoo, I do look after a lot of animals, and these are great enrichment. A lot of the animals we have, like rats and guinea pigs, chinchillas, mice, they love a toilet roll tube anyway. They love scrunched up paper. So if you give them a combination of the two, that's a really fun thing that you can actually make for your pet, especially things like rodents. And again, you can fill it with little treats for them. Actually baked my own animal treats last year. So if anyone keeps things like rabbits and guinea pigs, you can mush up their pellets and things with some things like safe dried herbs, some grated vegetables, and then you just bake them in a low heat in the oven. You can use your Christmas cutters to make them into festive shapes like stars and trees. Just make sure you put a hole in before you bake them, and you've made yourself a really, really easy, cheap treat for your pet that's going to look really festive and Christmassy, not cost you a lot of money, and just using things in your house. So you can bake things for other people as well, and doesn't have to be for animals. So again, on that EcoCraft website, they do all sorts of packaging. So if any of you do like to do things like baking as gifts, but you're not sure how to wrap it to gift it, then check out the EcoCraft website, because they've got lovely solutions to package things like homemade biscuits, little cakes, things like that. So if any of you are making your own gifts at home and you want to keep them more eco-friendly, then have a look into packaging for things like your own homemade items as well. So we are all very quiet in the chat, other than Nicola and Chris, so thank you so much for those options there. So I think, Corey, from me, I am all Christmased out in quite possibly record-breaking time. I know I do stress Corey out when he advertises an hour-long talk, and I've babbled at 100 miles an hour in 25 to 30 minutes, but it's quality, not quantity, and I like to think that that was of use to you all. So I'm sorry if I'm already preaching to the converted. Thank you ever so much for joining in tonight, and if you're watching this on the recording, really, really appreciate you taking the time to have a little watch again, and hello to you all. When this is on YouTube as well, do feel free to interact with the video, comment your own ideas. This is not about being perfect. This is about lots and lots of people doing things imperfectly and making a difference. So thank you for watching. I will hand back to Corey in case he has a few things to say.